You ever have that feeling where you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing with your money, but for some reason you just don't do it? Yeah, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're going to dive into one of the most popular and honestly, one of the most debated financial plans out there, Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. It's a system that millions of people swear by, but it also kind of flies in the face of what most economists would tell you is the smart thing to do. So which one's right? Let's get into it.
And this right here, this quote is the key to the entire Ramsey universe. He's basically saying that your money problems aren't a math problem, they're a person in the mirror problem. And that sets up the big battle we're going to explore today, the fight between our messy human psychology and pure, cold, hard numbers.
So let's really dig into that idea, the 80% problem. What exactly does he mean when he says our own habits are the real enemy?
So Ramsey's whole argument is that most of us aren't failing because we don't understand compound interest. We get it. We know debt is bad, saving is good. The real fight is with our own behavior, our impulses, our lack of discipline, our emotions. So his plan isn't really designed like a spreadsheet. It's more like a workout plan for your finances. The goal is to change your actions first and worry about perfecting the math later.
And wow, has this behavioral approach found an audience? I mean, we're not talking about a small niche following. According to research from the National Bureau of Economic Research, Ramsey's weekly radio show pulls in 18 million listeners. That is a massive cultural phenomenon, and it's all built on this one simple idea, tapping into that deep frustration we all feel with our own financial habits.
Okay, so if behavior is the problem, how do you fix it? Well, that brings us to the most famous and definitely the most controversial part of his entire plan, the debt snowball.
But before you can even start the snowball, you have to get your mind right. Ramsey calls it gazelle intensity. The idea is you have to start treating your debt like a cheetah that's trying to eat you. You run from it with this insane life-or-death focus. You cut everything non-essential. It sounds dramatic, and that's exactly the point. It's supposed to be a radical behavioral shock to your system.
And this intensity fuels what he calls the baby steps. First things first, you got to scrape together $1,000 for a starter emergency fund. This is just a small buffer so that when your tire goes flat, it doesn't blow up your whole plan. Then you unleash all that gazelle intensity on step 2, the debt snowball. And only after every single consumer debt is gone do you even think about building up a real emergency fund or investing for retirement.
So here's how the snowball actually works, and it's where people's heads start to spin. You list out all your debts from the smallest balance to the largest, and here's the crazy part. You completely ignore the interest rates. You pay the minimum on everything, and you throw every single extra penny you have at that smallest debt until it's gone. Then you take what you were paying on that one and roll it over to the next smallest. See, the goal isn't to save the most money on interest. The goal is to get quick wins that build your motivation and make you feel like you're actually making progress.
But what happens when this super popular motivation-first advice gets put under the microscope by a bunch of academic economists? Well, let's just say they have a very different idea, one that puts math way ahead of motivation.
And this slide lays out the big disagreement perfectly. The economists, they argue for something called the debt avalanche. With the avalanche, you ignore the balances and you go after the debt with the highest interest rate first. Mathematically, this is without a doubt the better way. It guarantees you will pay less money in total interest and you'll get out of debt faster. So here's the simple breakdown. The snowball feels good, but the avalanche is cheaper.
And there's split in thinking. It goes way beyond just paying off debt. This NBRE paper points out these big differences across the board. Popular advice, like Ramsey's, is all about simple, hard and fast rules. Save 15% of your income, period. Why? Because it's easy. It reduces what they call cognitive load. You don't have to think, you just do it, and that helps you fight off decision fatigue. Economic theory, on the other hand, it aims for mathematical perfection. It says, well, actually, you should change your savings rate throughout your life to perfectly smooth out your spending. So one side prioritizes simplicity to make sure you take action. The other side prioritizes complexity to get the absolute best result.
Okay, so we've got the behavior camp and the math camp, but what happens when these theories get out of the classroom and smack into the real world? Let's take a look at a case study from somebody who actually lived it.
This quote comes from a user over on Reddit who decided to go all in with the Ramsey plan, and they stuck with it all the way to what Ramsey calls baby step 7, the final step where you pay off your house and become completely 100% debt-free.
And the results? They were pretty incredible. After all those years of sticking to the plan, their net worth was $325,000. It's a huge win for that intense behavior-first approach. But, and this is a really important but, their story doesn't stop there. And this is where it gets really, really insightful. You see, this person didn't just follow the plan blindly forever. They used Ramsey's system almost like a financial boot camp to build an incredible amount of discipline. But once they had built that muscle, they started to pivot. They began using the more mathematically sound strategies that economists love, like investing in low-cost index funds. They even started using a rewards credit card, which is a huge no-no in Ramsey's world, because they now had the discipline to pay it off every single month without fail. They basically created their own hybrid model.
So what in the world does all of this mean for you? It means that personal finance isn't really about picking a team and sticking with it. It's about figuring out your own philosophy for your own life. So here's the core trade-off it all boils down to. Ramsey's plan is an amazing tool for changing your behavior and forging discipline. It's psychologically powerful. The economist's model, on the other hand, is a blueprint for mathematical perfection. It's financially optimal. But that real-world example showed us a third way, the hybrid path. You can use the behavioral plan to build the discipline you need. And then, once that discipline is just second nature, you can graduate to the more optimal strategies. It's not about Ramsey versus the professors. For a lot of people, it's about Ramsey and then the professors.
And that really brings us to the biggest, most important takeaway in this entire debate. A perfect plan doesn't mean a thing if you quit. A plan that is mathematically flawless is completely worthless if it's too complicated or too discouraging for a real human being to actually follow through on. At the end of the day, consistency is always going to beat short-term perfect optimization, always.
So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. When you think about your own financial life, what do you need more of right now? Do you need a better spreadsheet with a more perfect plan? Or do you maybe need a better relationship with that person in the mirror? The answer to that question will probably tell you exactly which path you need to start on.